皆様こんにちは。ブラックストーンのプライベートウェルス部門で日本、韓国責任者を務めております藤田です。足元ではプライベートクレジット市場やプライベートクレジットファンドを不安視する報道を目にする機会が増えています。本動画では投資対象ファンドであるブラックストーンプライベートクレジットファンド BCRED の会長兼共同 CEO ブラッド・マーシャルとともに足元のプライベートクレジット市場の実態やブラックストーンの見方についてこちらニューヨークよりお届けさせていただきます。3月以降、プライベートクレジットをめぐる報道が過熱しています。一方でプライベートクレジットは長期にわたり世界経済や企業の成長を支える重要な資金の供給源として台頭してきました。かつては一部の投資家に限定されていた投資戦略が今日では大きな注目を集める存在となっていますが、まず最初に資産クラスとして足元の規模までに成長してきた背景や、改めてなぜ今これほどまでに注目されているのかについて詳しく聞かせてください。
If I think about the growth of private credit, there's two primary drivers. One, companies found a more efficient way to access capital by working with Blackstone and people like Blackstone more directly. And investors who have been looking for return premium to what they could get in the public fixed income markets found an asset class that could do just that. So to take those in turn, when a company is looking for capital, they can, one, go to a bank. The bank will underwrite that risk, will get it rated, will then go through a lengthy distribution process, and then sell that to the public markets. Or that company can go directly to Blackstone, skip all of those steps, and get a more customized solution for their capital structure. And because of that efficiency, because we're delivering a more efficient way to receive capital, we're creating investor returns that are at a premium to what they can get in the public markets because of that efficiency. And so that's why the asset class has grown. Now, the second part of that question is, if that is true, why are there so many negative headlines about private credit? And I think it is primarily around when something grows so quickly, are we missing something? Of course, there's going to be defaults in any public or private markets. Those happen. But is that systemic? Is that indications of broader problems? And our view is that it's not. The asset class has grown because it is a logical way to deliver capital to companies, and investors are investing through vehicles that are actually structured to be very secure for them. They're investing at the top of the capital structure. They're not invested in vehicles that take daily deposits. They're not vehicles that are over-levered. They're one-times levered. So those defensive characteristics and the structure around them, we think are very positive for investors.
それでは足元で投資家の皆様から多く寄せられる質問についてお伺いしてまいりたいと思います。特にソフトウェア分野を中心に企業のデフォルトが急増するのではないかと懸念の声が広がっています。この点についてはどのように見ているんでしょうか。
So I do expect default rates to increase off what has been a very low base. Historically, default rates have been around 3%, and we've been running much below that over the course of BCRED's history. Now, in software, we will see defaults. We'll see it across a number of different sectors, and software may be one of them, in part maybe because of AI, in part because of some operating mistakes. Maybe it's an acquisition. So those are some things that we're aware of, we're watching. But on the software side, these companies are growing faster than the rest of our portfolio. And that gives us a lot of comfort that they're delevering, that we're partnered with bigger, better sponsors. We're partnered with companies that have very defensive moats in their businesses because they have incredible incumbency with their clients, because they own their own data. These are all very important characteristics as you think about developing an AI roadmap and leveraging the tools in order to navigate through what is a changing landscape in technology.
一方でプライベートクレジットは透明性が低く、融資の評価において信頼性に疑問があるのではないかという声もあります。この点についてはどのようにお考えでしょうか。
Yeah, so BCRED deploys numerous resources to value the underlying investments that we make. We hire third-party valuation firms. We have an internal team that looks at those valuations independently, and then we have a board of directors that signs off on those valuations. So there's multiple steps that we go through from a valuation standpoint. If I look back to 2022, we took marks down quite meaningfully because spreads had widened in the market. BCRED's performance was in the low single digits because we took those marks down. Wasn't because the assets were necessarily underperforming, but because we saw spread widening, our valuation team took the marks down. And then as spreads started to tighten, as companies performed, we've taken those marks back up. And so you do see a little bit of movement depending on the market backdrop, depending on spreads, depending on the company's performance. And that process is actually quite rigorous. And if I look at an underperforming company like Medallia, for example, which we own in BCRED, which has not performed well, over the past 6 quarters, we've continued to take that market down, reflecting each quarter's underperformance. And so it hasn't been an asset that we marked at par and then marked down to 70 cents, but rather each quarter it's been taken down. So the valuation process is actually quite rigorous. And better than that, BDCs themselves are incredibly transparent. Every asset that we own inside BCRED is listed in our schedule of investments, in our financials that investors can look at. They can look at the name of the company, the industry that it's in, the terms of the loan, the maturity, the mark of those assets.
しっかりと足元の評価を反映していて、さらには透明性が高いにもかかわらず、足元解約がどんどん相次いでいるという、そういった報道も見られます。投資家の皆様はすごく不安になっていると思いますけれども、こういった点はどのようにお考えなんでしょうか。
Yeah, redemptions have been elevated over the past couple quarters. We actually saw this in 2022 as well, where we had 3 quarters of elevated redemptions during the period of market dislocation. And similarly, we're seeing that this quarter and the past quarter. And that's not terribly surprising. The headlines are not terribly favorable as it relates to private credit. That is the primary source of information for a lot of investors. And they get nervous. They get nervous about the market. They get nervous about what they read. And so they look to take their capital back. And these vehicles were meant to give investors some level of liquidity. But it's important to remember a couple things. One, 92% of investors decided to stay invested in BCRED because of some of the things we mentioned before, the return premium, the lack of volatility that you see in private markets. So it's a very long-term durable asset class. And the second point, you did see some level of redemptions, all of which we met last quarter. We actually put up our own capital in order to help show alignment with our investors. We've been through this kind of elevated period of redemptions before. And during those time periods, we met actual redemptions every quarter at that time. The second thing is we maintain an amount of liquidity. And the reason why we maintain that level of liquidity is because we want to invest into this market. We want to take advantage of the dislocation that we're seeing in the broader markets and find very attractive investments for our investors that remain inside the fund. So very important characteristics as we think about our existing investors who remain with us.
9割以上の個人の投資家が継続して投資をしていらっしゃるとい いうお話でしたけれども、機関投資家ということで考えますと、もう本当に何十年にわたってこのプライベートクレジットに投資をしているという状況かと思います。個人の投資家の皆様にとってこのプライベートクレジットをポートフォリオに組み入れる意義というのを改めて教えていただけますか。
So the way that I think about private credit is it's an all-weather fund in the sense that in periods where the economy is very strong, where the markets are very strong, it generates a very attractive yield. When markets are more volatile, where they're dislocated, where there's some level of uncertainty, because we're senior in the capital structure, it becomes very defensive. It doesn't mean that you won't see periods of lower returns, and so that makes it an asset class that we would and I would consider to be more all-weather. So investors that are looking over a longer-term time period, that want a yield premium than what they can get in the public fixed income and leveraged loan market, and want to dampen volatility because they're not subject to market very active market swings. This asset class fits very well in a diversified portfolio, and by the way, has for a very long period of time. Private credit has outperformed the public markets over the past 20 years.
では最後に、今日のプライベートクレジット市場には数多くの投資運用会社が参入しています。投資家の皆様が投資運用会社を見極める際に、具体的にどのような点に注目をすればよろしいんでしょうか。
If you think about what we do for a living, there's three things. We source attractive transactions. Blackstone, through its relationships around the world, are finding, sourcing deals that in many cases are unique to Blackstone. Two, we're underwriting those deals. We're spending enormous amount of human capital and external resources to underwrite risk so that we minimize the event of default and the loss in the extent there is a default. So underwriting, using the broader bandwidth of Blackstone, the resources to make very smart decisions. And then thirdly, we proactively manage the assets, which means we're not making a loan and then stepping back and waiting for 5 years, 6 years to get our money back, but rather we're working with the owner of the business. We're working with companies to make sure their company navigates through periods of complexity. And partnering with someone who knows how to own and operate a business is very critical for investors over a long period of time. So I think it's those three things: making sure that you're a partner with a manager who has very good sourcing abilities, very good underwriting capabilities, and then know how to own and operate a manager.
ありがとうございます。プライベートクレジット市場の注目の高まりと市場の拡大を踏まえますと、プライベートクレジットに関するメディアの報道は今後も相次ぐ可能性があります。繰り返しとなりますが、プライベート市場においては優れた運用会社の選定が極めて重要です。ブラックストーンでは独自の競争優位性を持つクレジット投資プラットフォームを有しており、現在の市場の不確実性を乗り越える中で、投資対象ファンドである BCRED はさまざまな市場の局面を通じて安定したインカムを生み出すことを目指していくことができると考えています。本日はご視聴いただき誠にありがとうございました。